Hello, welcome to today's live stream. Good evening, everyone. Right, so today's live stream, very quickly, we'll have a little bit of a housekeeping at the start over here, to give an overview to everyone who is joining in. Okay, and then we'll jump into the market outlooks itself. Okay, so this stream here on a week-to-week basis, we're running it every Sunday for the month of August at 9 p.m. It's supported and sponsored by this platform, PXBT. So very quickly, just do a little bit of an introduction on some of the promotions they're running, so that you can get aware of it and to cover a little bit of a market outlook as we progress as well. Okay, so PXBT is a fairly new broker, fairly new platform. So right now they are running a special promotion where you can see on the screen, you have zero commission, so you can actually trade without additional fees in the market. And of course, on top of that, what they're doing right now is they are open to getting feedbacks from traders as well. So right now they do have this current offer where you can register for your account, get it verified, put in a $20 deposit, and from there on you can actually reach out to them once you have successfully registered and deposit. Let them know what's your MT4, MT5 ID. Let them know your details as well in terms of your bank details. They'll actually reimburse back the $20 that you deposit. Right, so in other words, you actually get to test out the platform, to test out their platform as well for free. Because when you put in your $20 deposit, they'll be reimbursing you directly back into your bank account. Okay, so for those of you that are interested to test it out, okay, fully utilize on this current promotion over here, there's this QR code that you actually can scan to register for account. And of course, on top of the $20 reimbursement, they also have a 50% deposit bonus. If you deposit in somewhere between $100 to 500, you get an additional 50% credit you can use for trading. And so, that's on top of the $20 that they'll reimburse you. Okay. Now, together with them, we are also running a special educational webinar on the 24th of August. Actually, yesterday we did our first webinar. In the event you missed that, that recording is actually up on my YouTube as well. You can go over and watch it. Okay. After that, the following week, on the 24th of August, we'll have the second series over here where we talk about the order flow strategy. Okay. So do take note of that as well. And of course, for the month of August, just now I did mention, every Sunday evening we'll be having a live market outlook. Okay. So with that said, I'll remind everyone of the disclaimer here as well. Okay. The information that we cover over here, the market outlook that we cover over here, are solely based on educational purposes, and they do not directly translate to any sort of a financial advice or trade signals, sort of. Okay, so good. The overview of today's session here is, I'll walk you through what I'm looking at, what's my perspective of the market going into the new week, and then of course you also have the opportunity to actually ask questions, right? So fully utilize the chat feature on YouTube Live over here. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll keep track of them too. Okay, now very quickly, let's do a summarized version of what happened last week in terms of the economic data. Right, so last week we did have the RBA statement. There wasn't much of a change, so the rate maintained at 4.35. Not much movement from the Aussie as well because there's no surprise element from that. Then on Friday we have the Canadian labor market data. Okay, surprisingly, the unemployment rate is not as worse as the general consensus was, right? So generally people were expecting it to worsen to 6.5, but overall the unemployment rate in Canada remains at 6.4. There wasn't much of a volatility from this news, because again there's not much of a shift, to be honest. Okay, so the cap were pretty much muted. There's not much movement from this news release, right? So last week generally were pretty quiet in terms of the news side of things. Okay, so let's take a look like going forward next week. What do we have? Okay, so next week is gonna be crucial because that this roll up a little bit. Okay, but we do have very important data coming in from the US side of things. Okay, now Tuesday we do have the climate count change from UK. That's essentially something sort of similar to NFP. Right, so that might have some volatility for the pound. Tuesday evening, we do have the US core PPI and PPI, but I think this would pale in comparison to the upcoming CPI that's going to be released on Wednesday. So I feel that US side of things, maybe the Tuesday PPI may not be as significant. Right? Wednesday morning, we have the RBNZ. Personally, I don't pay too much attention on the New Zealand side of things. It's not a kind of like a very liquid currency, right? In comparison to Aussie or other. So for me, I don't really touch a lot on the New Zealand side. Okay. But for those of you interested, and of course, if you're trading the New Zealand, you're trading the Kiwi, just take note of it. Okay. Wednesday evening, we do have both the pound CPI as well as the US CPI coming in. That is going to be important. Okay. But what is interesting over here is you can see the CPI year on year for the US. Generally, the expectation is to maintain at 3%. Okay, I mean, if you're looking at news trade, ideally we want some sort of a deviation, right? So if it's gonna just maintain at 3 and the expectation is 3, probably we may not see a lot of movement. But if the actual data comes out really surprising, whether is it above 3 or is gonna drop below 3, that would be something that is news tradable. Okay, so do keep track on Wednesday. I think that's definitely the key focus, right, for the week ahead. Thursday itself, we do have the Aussie unemployment rate. So that is something that might shake the market a little bit on the Aussie side of things. Okay, and then on evening we have the US core retail sales. Again, this pales in comparison to the CPI, but they do still have an impact in the market overall. Okay, so next week, for me here, the focus will be very much on the pound as well as the dollar. Okay, more of like focusing on the CPI data releases on Wednesday. Okay, so with that said, let me jump into the charts over here, to walk through in terms of some of the market outlook. Okay, so first one here is the dollar index. Let's take a look at what's my bias, what's my view on it. Now I'll zoom out a little bit more here so they can look at more data points. I'm actually bearish bias on the dollar. Okay, this is since the previous week, right? Like 1 week before, we have actually a very negative NFP data. Okay, we did see the dollar actually make an impulsive move to the downside. Last week was more or less a little bit of a pullback. Okay, so overall, going into the new week next week, we might see a little bit more upside here to complete the pullback, but I think overall direction, I'm still going to be focusing on the downside. Okay, so the key area here, of course, if the market does come back towards like 103.5, 103.8, I'll still be focusing on the sell side, right? So again, where is the key area to look out for in terms of opportunities to look for sell? As I mentioned, it's around that 50 and 618 FIB. Of course, I've drawn in this rectangle box as well. You can see that this has a nice little confluence towards where that previous structure was. Okay, so overall, as long as price remains below 104.8, we're gonna remain bearish, right? And of course, ideally, it's a three-wave correction that will build up the probability for a downside, right? So if dollar index we're gonna be bearish, then euro dollar here I'll be bullish. Okay. So euro dollar here has a very nice little impulsive move. Okay, after this corrective pullback, very very clean break. Right now the market seems to be doing a little bit of a correction. Okay, so key area is around that 50 and 618, right? So I would say if this comes back down towards the area around 1.0890, 1.0860, that would present an opportunity that we can look for the upside. Right, target here I'm currently aiming is at 1.1060. As long as price remains above 1.0775, I'm going to be bullish bias. Okay, so euro dollar here, the overall view is that we're looking at this as a 1, 2, 3, right? And of course, the internals of it here is a 1, 2, 3. Okay. And once that completes, this might be a channel structure, so price can actually pull back a little bit deeper and then a continuation upside, or sort of, right? But that's something that we'll cover as the market continue to progress. There's no need to forecast too far ahead. Okay, so at least for next week, that's the current view. If you can get a corrective pullback a little bit more to the downside, that opens up a buy trade opportunity. GBP USD over here, I'm a little bit neutral, but short term here, I'm expecting some sort of a deeper pullback. If I'm gonna pull my FIB here, potentially towards the 50 to 618 zone. Okay, the recent drop here hasn't been very impulsive, right? The market is coming down, but you can see very corrective in nature, very choppy. Seems like we may have a short-term bottom too. So going into next week, I would be interested to see if we can capitalize on a short-term pullback, right? Kind of like really a short-term thing. Factoring in, of course, midweek Wednesday, we have the pound CPI data. So that is something to note as well. Okay. But I think the direction seems to be pretty clear, okay, as of now, short-term upside. So this one here, I'm actually tracking in terms of setup. Okay, it's not a very high kind of conviction setup. Okay, that I would definitely take it, but I'm keeping watch. Okay, so what are some of the key components of this setup over here is that we have a little bit of a bottomish structure, right? Very clear neckline, and the market actually took out that neckline. Okay, so you can see this as a double bottom, neckline broken. If this pulls back, that opens up a buy trade setup. Okay, but that's about it, right? Because other than the double top neckline, kind of like break above and then wait for the pullback, we really don't have anything else that confluences with that. Okay, so that's the part where I'm a little bit more cautious. Okay, and I just want to give it maybe Monday or building into Tuesday, see how price is going to develop before I make a decision as to whether I'm going to take this short-term buy. Okay, but the directional bias right now is going to be, if I'm going to update this, it's going to be more of a short-term bullish bias. Okay, so that's definitely the direction going into next week. Okay, Aussie dollar over here, I think next week we'll likely see some sort of a pullback. Okay, the market make a dip but then reverses sharply. The price is also able to clear off some of these previous swing highs, right? So we're definitely bullish bias, but we want to see some sort of a pullback before we commit to the buy trade, right? Because we don't want to be buying at the top, right? For sure, right? You want to wait for market to pull back, get in on the buy trade at a lower price point, right? That would be ideal. So perhaps next week we're gonna see a little bit more of a pullback phase. Again, if you are interested to sell this as we're pulling back, that might open up an opportunity too. Okay, but of course right now we don't have a clear confirmation. I would love to see price take out that swing low first, right? So kind of from a structure perspective, this is a swing low. The market put in a temporary high. If price can come down, break and close below this, then we can start to wait and pull back for a short-term sell, right? Towards maybe this zone here, 50 and 618 pullback. Okay, so this might take a little bit more time. We'll need a little bit more confirmation from the market before we kind of commit to the buy trade. Oh, sorry, to the short-term sell trade. And then from a swing trade perspective, around this zone at 0.6475, 0.6445, we'll then be looking for the buy instead. Okay, so that's an Aussie. Dollar Canadian, I'm bullish in the short run, potentially expecting this, but then after that bearish, right? So again, the directional bias here really depends on your time horizon as well. Okay, so if you ask me in terms of like H4 time frame, would you be focusing on the sell side? Yes. okay, because this pullback is a 1 hour time frame trade. If you're more of a swing trade, you wait for the pullback and you sell it after the completion of the pullback. Okay? So directional bias, just take note, really depend on your time horizon as well. Okay, but I think dollar CAD and Aussie dollar is very much similar in a state where if today you want to look for the short-term buy, okay, we currently do not have any confirmation yet, okay, at least on a H1 perspective, right? This may continue to do a little bit of a crawl structure here. For us to commit to a short-term buy, we want to see price take out certain swing high first, pull back, then only we start to trade it to the upside, right? So it takes time. So again, this is a pair that may or may not have anything significant going into next week. Okay, sometimes we just need to be on the sidelines, monitor how price develop. Okay, if we get a clear setup, then we commit to it, right? So Aussie dollar, dollar CAD right now, we don't really have much. Dollar yen, potentially we may get a buy trade to the upside. Again, this is going to be a short-term play because from a macro fundamental point of view, I'm definitely bearish on the dollar yen, right? Because the Bank of Japan has recently started hiking rates. We'll continue to expect the yen to strengthen. And then on the other side, we have the Fed potentially going to cut rates as soon as September or end of this year. And then going into next year, we're likely going to start the cycle of cutting. So we have a clear fundamental divergence between the Fed as well as the Bank of Japan, right? So when that happens, oftentimes it gets a very nice trend. So dollar yen here will be definitely bearish bias from the longer term perspective. Okay, but from a technical point of view, this has came down quite a bit. So short term, I'm not surprised if we get some sort of a temporary pullback, and that opens up an opportunity to look for buy, right? So dollar yen, okay, we may again have an opportunity, but it's not the cleanest of all. Okay, we do get break of structure over here. However, it's not like very very clean continuation after that. We get a break, we have a high, and then after that the market has been consolidating a little bit. If this comes back down, we may actually get an opportunity to buy, but I just want you to be aware that this order block here has actually been tested already, right? Why? Because this area you can see, okay, previously was an order block. It came back, tested it, gave a nice bounce, right? So it's not a fresh demand zone, right? So for that, we may not really want to take it, really depending on how things are gonna play out and develop going into next week, okay? Yeah, so dollar yen and of course the pound dollar, there are opportunities right now, but they are not high confidence setup, right? So those are the things to know. Now, commodity side of things, gold here, I'm interested in a short-term sell. Now the market is kind of testing the 618, right? As of last week close. Why am I bearish? Because I'm expecting a simple three-wave structure here. Okay, we did get a nice impulsive drop. This pullback may have completed a three-wave as well. So at the 618, if you can get a nice decent bounce to the downside, then that would be great. Okay, so the directional bias here is bearish, and then after which potentially we may see gold actually move higher from there on. Okay, but short-term bearish. This one here, I'm actually in a trade already that were triggered last Friday. Okay, so this trade here, you can see what we have is essentially a breakout structure. Okay, so we have this swing high, this swing low, pull back, the market break and close below. We're currently getting a pullback here with the supply zone that is currently being tested. Okay, so I'm already in this trade, but of course we are currently still at what we call break-even point. So if going into next week it aligns with your strategy, aligns with your setup, your plan, you can actually look for opportunities to sell this too. Okay, now what I like about this here is also we are getting a little bit of a crawlish setup. right? On the lower time frame as well, right? So that also tell us potentially momentum to the upside might be lacking, and there's a high probability we may see a push down. Okay, so gold here, very clean setup. Okay, my stop is essentially at the swing high, my target is just at the swing low. Right, so that's on gold trade. Crude oil over here, I'm also looking at a sell, right? Again, the directional bias here is bearish because we're looking at the perspective of a channel. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so of course, does it mean that the price needs to always come down to the bottom? No, right? Not necessary. We actually had this little break here, you can see. Okay, so can this be a completion of a 1, 2, 3? Yes. Okay, but for me, I'm willing to take that sell potential trade over here. Okay, as long as price remains below the swing high, right? So this one here, I also just got in on Friday, right? Literally to the pit. Okay, so this trade here, I'm in it on Friday, just got in. Okay, the reason for taking that is again from a lower time frame, we have a clean break of the swing. This is a fresh supply zone, not tested before, so kind of expect a little bit of a reaction here. We do get a little bit of a crawlish pattern here as well. Okay, so what I mean by crawlish pattern, right, is if you go down to the lower time frame, okay, you bring in your RSI indicator, you can see the confirmation of a divergence. Okay, so as the market continue to go higher, we're lacking that momentum. Okay, so oftentimes this indicate a potential reversal point. That's the trade that I currently have, actually from last week Friday. S&P 500, I think that likely a little bit more upside. I wouldn't say that the bottom has been established because we can actually see another push lower. But of course, that sell-off here was very aggressive, right? And probably causing some panic and fear in the market. But to be honest, if you zoom out sufficiently, right, that is really just a mere correction, right? You can see how, back in 2003, we have some pretty deep pullback here as well. Okay, we have pretty deep pullback here as well. Pretty deep pullback here as well. Okay, pretty deep pullback here as well, and then the market starts to rally, right? And of course, we have another deep pullback here as well. I think this is just one of it. From a macro angle, right, if the Fed really starts to cut rates, it's actually supportive of the equities in general. Okay, because we have lower interest rate, we have cheap money coming into the market. Some of those will eventually flow into the equity side of things and pump the demand on it. So fundamentally and macro perspective, I'm actually bullish on US equities going into next year. Okay, so this kind of pullback here may open up opportunities that we can look for buy. Okay, but of course, if you're more of a technical person, you don't have a confirmation of a buy yet. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm neutral. You can see over here. This one here may offer some sort of a reaction where the market can actually come back to the downside, right? So I'm just patient on this. Okay. The pound yen here, nothing much. Okay, pound yen here, we're basically just gonna be neutral as well. Odd yen as well. Okay, for the yen play, I would rather focus on dollar yen. Okay, because dollar yen structure seems a little bit cleaner, as compared to Aussie yen and pound yen. Okay, right. Then we have the pound odd. Okay, so pound odd as of last week seems to have start to establish a little bit of a bottom here. Okay, if I'm gonna pull Fed, short term we may get a decent pullback. Okay, of course, ideally we want that decent pullback. Okay, then we can start to look for sell trade as well from a swing point of view. Okay, so short term, actually, I would potentially shift towards bullish to trade that pullback. Okay, to trade this pullback. Again, this might need a little bit more confirmation from the market first. Okay, we need the market to take out this swing high. then we can anticipate a bigger pullback to the upside than a long-term sell, right? So short-term, if you can break this high, that pullback will give us a buy trade opportunity with a target somewhere there. Then we'll flip it and start to look for sell. Okay, very, very simple mechanical approach, right? So short-term upside, we can potentially capitalize on that trade. Then after that, we'll rotate and start to look for sell opportunity. Okay. So that's on pound odd. Very, very similar to pound dollar, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, so definitely something to keep watch going into next week. Okay. Maybe I should just tag those out so that yeah, so that you guys are able to easier keep track of things, right? Yeah, maybe that I'll take away the pound dollar, right? Because I think pound odd may be an easier and clearer play if it happens. Then we have EuroCAD. EuroCAD is very impulsive to the downside. I'm gonna be interested in bearish bias, but if you can get some sort of a confirmation of a short-term pullback, then again short-term play, we can look for the pullback and then downside, right? So within the week, intra-week, we may look for this kind of buy setups, okay? But they're definitely intra-week, which means you are taking trades maybe just 1 or 2 days, capitalize on the pullback, and then we'll flip it and start to look for the swing trade to the downside. Okay, that's on EuroCAD. This one probably you need to be more patient about it, right? So basically at bottom, we don't really have some sort of a potential confirmation yet, right? So this needs time. We're not going to be focusing it at self now. Bitcoin, okay, we did get a massive sell-off last Monday, but then the market seems to be bouncing up very aggressively as well. So going forward here, if you can get some sort of a pullback, that would definitely open up buy trade opportunities, okay? So BTC over here, I'm definitely bullish, right? I don't think you want to be selling it with this pullback, but what we want to do is we want to wait for a corrective pullback. Okay, corrective pullback means it doesn't come down too fast, right? Basically, take a little bit of time to come back towards the zone around 56,200 to 54,600. That will open up a buy trade opportunity to the upside. Okay, and in terms of crypto, that will be something to note. Okay, let me very, very quickly jump into some of the global indices as well. Okay, so in terms of the US market, I think in general they are more or less going to be the same as the S&P 500. Okay, so this one here, if I'm going to clean it up, yeah, I think more or less same as S&P, right? You can see the chart pattern more or less the same. German DAX over here, the market seems to be bouncing up pretty strong. I'll be a little bit neutral on this, right? Because from a wave perspective, this has completed a 3-wave. So I'll be a little bit neutral. I want to see how the market is going to react off this 50 and 618. Okay. If we kind of get a nice rejection, then of course we can start to look for more downside. Okay, but we'll see. Okay, some key zones, of course, is like this zone. You can see how the market has previously reacted. Okay. Of course, the 50 and 618 here also has some nice confluences, right? So we'll see how the market react off for the German DAX. Okay. FTSE over here seems to have completed a very nice 3-wave. Okay. So for me, I think this again very much neutral as well. I think generally maybe the developed markets here, in terms of indices, we're just gonna be patient for the week ahead. Okay. A50, the China market came back and tested the 618, but we don't really have more confirmation right now, right? The market is literally just testing that as of last week, right? Closed last week. So this might need a little bit more time to see how the market is going to react off that 618, right? So nothing there. I'll just suggest to be patient. HSI as well, Hong Kong Index. Be a little bit patient on that. Nothing much. Yeah, nothing. I mean, if you see a V shape on the chart, oftentimes you hear me say, just stay away. Okay, give it a little bit more time for the market to develop before you commit to anything. When you see a V shape formation, oh, nothing there as well, right? Very massive drop, so you don't want to be touching on. So I think global indices probably nothing much for the week ahead. Okay, um, commodities would probably be the focus, right? Because for me personally, I'm also in gold and crude oil, right? So commodities are definitely the focus. And then some a few currency pairs are also building up some potential setups that we can look out for next week. Okay. Um, good. So that's all for me for now. Okay. For the week ahead, that's generally what we are looking out for. Quick chat. Do you guys have any questions or any particular um charts that you'd like me to touch on? Okay. Good. If there isn't, then what I'll do over here is to wrap up the session a little bit. Okay. Of course, the recording is gonna be up once we end the stream as well. You can always re-watch it. But basically, we cover some of the potential, I would say, trade opportunities for the week ahead. Okay. Two of this actually I'm in already based on last Friday. Things are still valid. I'm gonna hold on to them going into next week as well, and then adding in some of the potential trade opportunities to look out for as well. Okay, and of course, last one here to wrap up as well. The Sunday streams that we're doing right now in August, they're basically supported by PXBT, which is a pretty new trading platform. However, they're also running some promotions for traders to go and test out their platform and give feedback, right? If you have any idea of how to improve, you have any suggestions for them, they're very open to that as well. Okay, so to encourage traders to go and test out and give them feedback, they are running promotions right now where you can register for your account, verify your account, make a $20 deposit, and they'll reimburse you this $20 directly back into your bank account, right? So the process is pretty straightforward. You scan this QR code, register for your account, verify it, fund $20 into your account, and then email them your particulars, right? Your particulars basically means your MT4, MT5, your trading account ID, your personal ID, as well as your bank account. They will reimburse you the $20 that you deposited in. Okay, now of course, on top of that $20, if you're gonna deposit a little bit more, between 100 and 500, you're gonna get a 50% deposit bonus as well that you can use to trade. Okay, now on top of that, we are also running a educational webinar for this upcoming Saturday. Not this week, the following week, right? 24th of August, 9 p.m. Right? We'll talk about order flow strategy. Last session, which is basically yesterday, we covered Elliott Wave, the introduction to Elliott Wave webinar. If you missed that webinar yesterday, the recording is already up on my YouTube. Okay, you can actually go over to my channel and watch yesterday's session. If you have yet to watch yesterday's session, I would strongly encourage you to do it before joining in for the 24th of August one. The course is a build up. Okay, we talk about directional bias first yesterday, right? And of course, this second webinar will talk about timing. Okay, when to get in, how to get in, what's the strategy to use to execute your trade. Okay, so that's all for me for today's session over here. All the best to your trading for the week ahead. Okay, reminder to always manage your risks, and I'll see you guys in the following sessions itself. You guys, good night, bye.